Welcome back to the Tavern, friends. Before you recruit some new minions for the battle, let me welcome you to episode 16 of Tavern Tales, a Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight we'll be discussing the recent trend of players moving towards Murlocs. We'll also share our thoughts on the current state of the game when it comes to the patch cycle and hero rotations. And of course, it wouldn't be a week without the inevitable. And by that, of course, I mean blaming something on Celestalon. And, pick 2 is back this week, pitting Syndragosa up against Lord Jaraxxus. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who has been joining us on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight in the tavern, as always, is my co-host Ednar, and Ed, it's been some interesting trends here as of late, not just within Battlegrounds, but more so the fact that you and I are primarily playing Hearthstone. Above everything else.
Right? We're playing a lot of Hearthstone between the two of us right now. I mean, you're playing basically all Battlegrounds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a little bit more in regards to regular Hearthstone. So yeah, I'm playing about half that, half Battlegrounds. But yeah, we're playing a lot lately, and this is kind of crazy for us.
I mean, I guess? Comes and goes. I did only get, a couple more games in this week as opposed to, this past week. Obviously, I've been fairly busy getting a podcast project off the ground, so a lot of my attention's kind of been there. But in regards to Battlegrounds, last week I ended the week at 6258. This week I'm at 6184, so I do not have a net positive this week. Honestly, for the first time in I want to say 5 or 6 weeks at this point. I had a handful of games. I think only 1 or 2 more than this past week. But only 4 of the ones that I played were top 4 finishes. Out of those, half of them were lobby wins, both of which were with Nozdormu. Really no surprise there. But it was a rough start for me personally in Battlegrounds. I had 5 of my first 6 games this week being a bottom 4 finishes, and that dropped me to 60-40 Raiden at the time. So I've definitely had to kind of claw my way back here. And it's been interesting. So one of those Nozdormu games that I had, which is something I mentioned earlier pre-show, was I basically got in a Shifter's Iris pretty much right away, and on the first shift, it actually gave me a Calicos. So I was like, that's a pretty good minion for that time, at least, that time frame within a game. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to transition over to Dragons. Now, at this time, I didn't really have anything, but I was able to, with whatever gold I had for that turn, pick up a Twilight Emissary. So, I at least had, at that point, 2 dragons on board. And I justified it based off of that. Now, going into that next round, I did manage to get 2 Hangry Dragons. So, I was feeling pretty good. But it was just the fact that I got a tier 6 minion off of the very first shift from Xeris, which very rarely happens. And I was basically just on cruise control, and once I got those Hangry Dragons, I was basically just able to cycle through whatever Battlecry minions were coming up at that time. So it was a very smooth way to kind of end my week leading into the show tonight. But it was a pretty mixed bag, honestly, just across the board, because there were a lot of games where I was just kind of treading water and just not really having a clear direction with some of my choices, at least for the minion offerings that Bob had for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've had a great week. I've had a steady week, to say the least. I'm right at where I was a week ago, and I probably had 10 to 15 matches in me this week. So it's not like I'm not doing anything. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I think, um I'm slowly starting to understand it better, but I just need that one extra push, which is something you're going to be helping me with, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get around to that this past week, but we'll definitely be planning it over the course of the weekend.
Yes, we definitely will be kind of like a one-on-one, because I get it in theory. I just the I'm horrible at buffing, and I always hold on to cards for too long, way too long. So yeah, it's definitely something we're working on. But man, after I heard you did 4 straight bottom 4, I'm like, welcome to my world, Totem. Like, I'm just like, this is what it's like to be me. No, I don't think I've done 4 in a row in the bottom 4 in a long while.
Oh, there's time.
Oh, there's plenty of time.
Yeah, so, the worst part about that, too, is, when I ended going into, like, our last episode, I had, like, back-to-back-to-back, like, 4th place finishers. Now, granted, it was, like, minor increases, but, like, it was consistency, and then just like, well, I start with an open of 6, 8, 4, 6, 5, 7. And then I got a lobby win finally. So, like, it took a while to get up into that point. And part of it is just the fact that we've slowly started to see more of a trend popping up within Battlegrounds, which is kind of weird when you think about it, because it's not like we've really had a major update or a ton of balance changes, which, we will get into here in just a little bit with how that's been kind of, like, handled here as of late. But I have seen an alarming amount of players trending towards Murlocs in their lobbies. And it seems to be happening more and more every day. Now, I know in one of the lobbies I had, which was one of my Nozdormu runs, literally every single player in that lobby went Murlocs. So it was basically a free-for-all. It was a mad dash to get whatever the buff cards would be whenever they would pop up in Bob's Tavern. And it's weird because, like, it's not like there have been any sort of drastic changes to the tribe here recently. But I wonder if it just got to the point where everyone was just running dragons, and then as a community, everyone's like, you know what? F it. Let's go Murloc. I don't know what caused it.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of with Murloc is, well, dealing with dragons, there's not much that can deal with dragons.
Except other dragons.
Except other dragons. Demons, in the right build, could, but dragons can get out of control rather quickly. Okay? So, it is one of those things where I am thinking it's because you can get Murloc's health way up there to actually be able to compete with them. And that's where it's coming from. Is like, if you get that brand and then you start buffing and you just keep buffing and buffing and buffing, you're gonna do just fine. So that is my theory.
Okay. Well, I know, like, even in some instances, I have seen lobby wins without brand in play for the Murloc players as well. But yeah, like, the overall scaling definitely kind of, like, leads up against the fight against, like, the Calicos, like, Dragon builds that we are seeing, which do rely heavily on the Battlecry minions, as well as getting that Nadina kind of in the late game to give everyone Divine Shield. And, what better way to do that than by grabbing a Megasaur, getting your Divine Shield, and then just laughing. But, I wanted to look at the tribe in itself really quick.
Okay.
So when we're talking about, like, team compositions right now, if you go on HS Replay, you'll notice that currently they are the third most popular composition at 18.7%. Now, I will have a caveat here. They are the second most popular tribe because Menagerie does tend to be a little bit more popular, which I
Mhm.
find kind of polarizing, Ed, because I don't know about you, but I'm not really seeing a ton of Menagerie builds with where I'm at right now in regards to like a skill rating.
I see, and I wonder what they consider menagerie build. You know what I mean?
Like what the threshold would
What
be.
the threshold would be. And I think some of that has to do with, well, some of them are just taking buffed up cave hydras and then they have holy mackerels. Well, that's a beast and a murloc right there,
Right.
but they may be running some sort of divine shield, which also has mechs. And it's, yeah, I don't know if it's something that is going to be I just don't know.
Well, looking at the minions that it has for like the final war bands, like for the composition, it does have Hydra.
Okay.
It also has Holy Mackerel, Bronze Warden, the Nylin Battlemaster, and it's Mechano Egg. So it does have all of the tribes listed there, along with, your Light Fane and a Bran.
Okay. So that makes sense.
But yeah, I,
Yeah.
I wonder if there is a threshold there to distinguish what that actually is. Because I know, like, for myself, like, there have been a number of games where, all of a sudden you have, like, two Beast, two Dragon, and then it just kind of, like, stays that way. So I don't know if that would be considered a menagerie in HS3 mind. But anyways, that's besides the point. So as of right now, dragons are still the most popular tribe, with a 21.1% popularity. And what's interesting about this, when it comes to it, is Murlocs. We talk time and time again about Flurgle embracing Ricky Bobby. If you're not first, you're last. Well, I was looking at the Murloc tribe placement, first through eighth. And yes, it is true they do finish first 22.86% of the time. Dragons right now are currently in second at 19.49%. And then there's a pretty noticeable gap below that. I think like the next closest is like a little over 13%, and then a lot of stuff below 10%. So like there's pretty distinct cutoffs in regards to how good select tribes are in regards to like the tiers.
Mm-hmm.
But Murlocs themselves do not actually have the lowest eighth place finish percentage. So now I don't even know what to believe. Maybe it's just something with Flurgle, but for whatever reason, Tribe itself, for eighth place, is actually second to last, only being outdone by Big Demon Builds, who finished in 8th place 12.34% of the time. Now, that's not like a huge differential compared to like Murlocs right now, who are at 11.94% for the last place finishes, but I just thought it was intriguing. I for sure thought that it would just kind of mirror what we were seeing with the Fungal Mancer Flurgle at the time, because it's something that we bring up time and time again, pretty much on a weekly basis. So like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't match what we've been known or just been accustomed to at this point.
No, it's not what we've dealt with at all. And I don't know if it's something that we're gonna see change anytime soon, unless we obviously get changes to the game. Um, but yeah, it's weird to me. It's just weird to me, and I have had zero luck playing. Um, I yeah, I just have zero luck playing them, plain and simple. I just don't know um, how it's actually going to work out here in the end,
Mm-hmm.
because it's 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 going to be interesting. It really is. So yeah, we'll see. they're not oppressive. I'll say that. They are not oppressive. They're not Murlocs of old.
Well, they're not
That is
Murlocs plus Amalgam.
true. That was brutal. And I did not like that. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. We should be getting an update here pretty soon.
I mean, I would hope so. The only other thing I do want to note really quick, because we have seen a lot of Divine Shield builds, whether it's dragons, with the enforcers, whether it is just someone running Divine Shield Murlocs. I've noticed a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't really realize Unstable Ghoul exists and can just completely outdo that board. Like, people just seem to forget, like, you're able to remove Divine Shield in the game with this Death Rattle, but, people are just turning a blind eye to it. So, like, make sure, like, when you're in those moments, if you are, like, let's say you're down to the final two and you're just not able to clear the Divine Shields, and you're getting outsealed or whatever, you absolutely have to take a Ghoul just to try to even things out. Otherwise, it's just an automatic loss. So keep an eye on things like that to, turn the tides, and, hopefully you'll come out with a lobby win on that front. But getting back to...
Oh, I just want to say one thing. Unstable Ghoul is like a hero. Because, when I found the best way to use Unstable Ghoul...
Okay.
...is endgame. It's 100% the best thing to do endgame, because Murlocs are super popular. So is Divine Shield. Like, and I've even been watching like Saviv and Kibler and them play Battlegrounds, and like it will be down to 3 teams, and they'll see somebody up, and they'll have an Unstable Ghoul in their hand, and they'll just throw that out there as a taunt to get rid of all their Divine Shields.
Yeah, it's like a trump card, basically.
Yeah, because like what just screws over the what is it? The Holy Mackerel the most? Taking away everyone's Divine Shield.
Now, there is something I want to note about that in particular. If they have 2 mackerels,
then it's a little bit tricky.
Then there's a weird interaction between the two. Then neither of them actually lose it. So I do just want to throw that out there.
Yes. But at least everyone else on the team does not have it.
Right.
So that is something to keep. But Unstable Ghoul, phenomenal early game. Unsung hero late game. Not good middle game. So all they need to do is get 1 cold light seer, and you'd be like, and Unstable Ghoul, you are useless.
Yeah. Just one way to ensure that everything just finishes with like 1 health anyway. But anyways, getting back to patching. So, it's been interesting because we've seen like different speeds to like the patch cycle. Really early on, they were being fairly aggressive, them being, Team 5, the Hearthstone development team. And, it came with like balance changes. We had more heroes getting swapped in and out of the rotation. And, it made things pretty fresh on a week-to-week basis. Very similar to like what we were seeing with Overwatch when it came to the rotation of like hero pools on a week-to-week basis. So every week just felt like it had like a different approach to take to the game. So since then, in recent weeks or the past month or whatever, we've gotten more minor tweaks here and there. We're talking about like the Millhouse Manastorm nerf, where he's middle of the pack. You also had like the release of Illidan along with the latest Hearthstone expansion. And, it's kind of just been a far cry from what we had been seeing in months past. Now, I don't know if this is primarily just due to, maybe the creative roadmap taking a little bit of a hit due to the pandemic. But we have seen other dev teams, even within Blizzard releasing new content from home. So I don't know if that's to blame or not, but it just seems like we were getting to this point where every couple of weeks we're getting a little tidbits. But now all we know is we do have a big update planned that's supposed to drop mid expansion, but we don't necessarily know when that is going to be. So right now we're just kind of like shrugging, like what's going on? Like what do you
Uh,
think's changed?
well, I don't think anything's changed. I think what they're waiting for is the next big patch in Hearthstone is going to be when they come out with their solo adventure, which is going to be coming out soon. They have said, and the rumblings are it's going to be a free to play like PVE experience, but it doesn't give you any cards or anything.
Okay.
Right. So I would imagine it would come out with that. Like they're gonna bring it out with that because it will be close to halfway through the season, and they want to revitalize like this expansion, I guess you could say. Even though this is one of the better expansions they've ever done, um, so I'm assuming it's going to be something somewhere around that time. Now that's probably still like 3 weeks away. Yeah, something like that. Like something like 3 weeks away would be my guess. 3 to 4 weeks, and then we'll get it in like 2 to 3 weeks type of situation.
I don't know. It just seems like we're kind of like getting to this point now, and I'm not gonna say that the game is getting stale, but I have seen rumblings from players that feel like it is starting to get to that point. So even if it is a minor update similar to like what we saw with the Mana Storm nerf, I don't think too many people would be as opposed to something like that. But you just need a little something to kind of like whet the appetite every now and then before you get to the main course. Probably best way to put it. But anyways, hopefully we'll get more information on that soon. But yeah, we're expecting probably another 3 weeks or so, unfortunately, on that end. So it doesn't look like we'll have too many tidbits here and there moving into that next patch. Which leads us to, our typical destination. Something that we have to talk about every week. We've seen a lot of changes in the world. We've seen the introduction of murder hornets, and I don't know who else to blame other than Celestalon for that. I don't know how he does it. He's a celestial being. You can see him under UV light because of his tattoos. There's a lot of weird stuff happening in the world, and you can't just blame the puzzle box from Yogg-Saron. You can't just embrace the chaos of that alone and just have that be, the sole purpose of everything. So looking at...
I mean, Nicolas Cage is playing, what's his name, from
Joe Exotic?
Joe Exotic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the world's coming to an end when Nicolas Cage is getting work to play Joe Exotic, the tiger guy.
Yeah. It's a fair point. But anyways, so looking at this weekend, I know you were kind of like struggling to come up with the stories, so I'll go for one of the games that I had this week. So I venture into the lobby, I queue up, and this is during, that losing streak that I was on. But the hero options that I got for this one were Galakron, Queen Wagtoggle, Millhouse Mana Storm, and Illidan Stormrage. So I was like, alright, I'm weighing my options here. So, Wagtoggle I've never really been a fan of, primarily because I'm not too fond of being forced into, Menagerie, and I don't really feel like a couple of attack, even without forcing it, is really going to be able to outscale other builds out there. Millhouse, I honestly haven't played post-nerf, but I've seen enough Millhouse performances to know that I think I've only seen like one or two finish top 4 in the games that I've played since then. So that kind of just shied me away from picking him altogether.
Okay.
My Illidan game, early on, pretty good. Very small pool though. And then, the issues of the poor, early game led me away from him. And then I'm like, well, Galakrond, I'm like, ugh. Like, statistically, one of the worst heroes in the game. So I was like, what the heck do I even do here? So I time out, right? I let the fates decide, and I ended up getting Galakrond. This was kind of reminiscent of the game that I had this past week, where, I won one round, and I basically lost all the others except for, like, the couple of rounds that I drew. Well, in this case, I did not manage to get a single draw. I only won the first round of combat, much like that prior game, and then I proceeded to lose the next 7 rounds, drop 97 Raiden, which at the time did put me to, like, that low point that I talked about towards the top of the show. But it was just one of those instances where I don't really have a clear direction into, like, what direction I should take. Like, I was like 2 beast, 2 dragon, and I was like, well, I'm just stuck here. And then most of the options that I was getting from Bob at the time were like mech or Murloc or neutral. So I was like, well, that really doesn't help me. And if I was gonna go Menagerie, well, it's like, well, I'm not really seeing any Zubots. I'm not seeing any of the magicians at the time to purchase from Bob, and it's just like, well, I'm just kind of stuck here. So if I'm not getting buffs, obviously I'm not scaling, and I'm not really finding upgrades in the Tavern. So it's just a one and done type situation. Manage to win one round, and then you just lose outright altogether. It was a very downlifting performance that I was not too thrilled about.
Yeah, like, all right, so I know you said I don't have many Blame Celestalon moments, and that's true. I don't have many because, like, most of my games were pretty much middle of the road. Nothing too great, nothing too bad. But I feel you so bad. It's like, it's not the fact that you're getting shit heroes to select, because that just happens to everyone from time to time. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
But this is you got screwed because there's no cards. And that has been happening to me a lot. Like, a lot. Like, where you're just like, okay, I'm taking the best cards available to me, but I'm not getting anything because you're just doing a menagerie build, and a menagerie build is not that great right now. I will say I do tend to blame Celestalon the most with the new app, not app, but thing on Deck Tracker, where it tells you your percentages. Oh, every time, like, I don't win one of those, I'm just like, fucking Celestalon.
Yeah, I have not downloaded Bob's Buddy as of yet.
You don't need to download it. If you have Deck Tracker,
I was just tied into it.
It's tied into Deck Tracker.
Well, in that case, then I do have it. Difference is I haven't used it, primarily because I feel like as soon as I start using it, then it's just going to make me even more tilted when I'm already having these things just happen organically anyway.
It will 100% make you more tilted. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that at all. You will become tilted because of this.
Yeah.
And it's just something you have to come to terms with. Because there's going to be a lot of matches that you're just like, I was a 70% favorite to win and nothing happened. And then you're just like, well, shit, what do I do now? So it's there is, I will say this, there is a way to change it. So when you when you first, like, the way it works is when you first log in, it kind of gives you all right, here's your chances. Before you even attack, it tells you your chances. There is a way to change it so it doesn't do that, so you don't get your hopes up or whatever, but it will tell you it after.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of hides it till after. So at least you're not pissed during the matchup.
Yeah, but I don't think being pissed after is necessarily the better way, because then you're just like so tilted after last round that, you know, maybe that will cause you to hiccup in regards to like missing something as you're rolling.
Yeah. That is true. But some people don't want to know that stuff off the bats. Like, I guess I'm one that wants to know it, but some people may not.
See, I go into every game just knowing that there's 99% chance something at some point in this game that's going to piss me off. I don't need a new feature just to further dive into that much more. But to each your own. I mean, I'm sure people are getting some use out of Bob's Buddy, but I'll probably keep doing what I've been doing here as of late.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, looking at hero options this week, for our pick 2, I selected Syndragosa and Lord Jaraxxus. You know, I will say, like, when it comes to tier 3 options, you know, this is all being based on HS replay, a lot harder, I would say, to, like, kind of, like, choose between them. So when you look at the stats, you have Syndragosa and Lord Jaraxxus, both who have a 4.58 average placement. Fairly middling at that. Syndragosa does tend to be the more popular pick at 16% compared to Jaraxxus, who is at 8.5%. So when we're looking at some glaring differences between the two, probably the first thing that jumps out is the fact that Jaraxxus has a much higher, like, 8th place finish rate, compared to Syndragosa. When you look at the stats, it's 16.71%, to Syndragosa's 9.94%. That's a pretty big jump there. Now, while, like, the other end of the spectrum, like, the first place is, like, neck and neck, Jaraxxus does tend to be a little bit more consistent when it comes to, like, those 2nd through 4th place finishes as well. So it's a little polarizing on that front. So looking at these two, you have Syndragosa, who essentially has a stronger early game. Someone who has, like, positive win rates through probably, I would say, like, 8 combat turns, maybe, except, like, the first 2, which are kind of like 50-50 or below. But Jaraxxus is the opposite. He really struggles in the early game, but once you get to, like, turn 6, which is at 8 gold, you really start to see that momentum start to pick up for him. And then you're just constantly, like, hammering that hero power. And it gets to the point where he has a positive combat win rate until the late game of, like, turn 16, according to HS Replay. And I thought that was very intriguing. So it seems like as long as you can, like, survive to the point where, I don't know, you get to Tavern 3 and maybe get a juggler, it's just like the wheels come off at that point, and you're just able to, like, carry that momentum into the late game.
Yeah, okay. So here's my thing with this. I get the appeal of Lord Jaraxxus. I do. But I would literally take Lich King, Reno Jackson, Nefarian, Flurgle, Shutterwalk, Wag Toggle, Millhouse, all before I would take Lord Jaraxxus.
See, I feel like, Ed, this is just your hatred of Soul Juggler talking.
It's not my hatred of Soul Juggler. It's the simple fact of I hate the fact that you have to, like, if you don't play demons, this is useless to you.
Yeah, the hero power, yeah.
Like, you are handcuffed to playing demons. Otherwise, you have a really, really useless hero. And that's what gets me. Now, there are other ones that I think target things like different things, like a Maleficent Manastorm, Mex and Bob Taverns have +2 attack.
Hmm.
But you don't necessarily have to have a mech build to do that. And I think that's the only reason it's higher. But it's, again, it goes back to these targeted, classes. Hero powers tend to always be towards the bottom. They just do. Um, and I think the one exception to that is Alex Straza, but Alex Straza, I think the reason Alex Straza is so powerful is because, well, one, um, you have a chance to get Malagos, possibly, and Malagos is just insanely overpowered. Uh, but you have a lot more dragons that you need. I mean, it is what it is.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just I don't find any situation where you take Lord Jaraxxus over Syndragosa.
I will note you said Malagos and you're thinking Calicos.
Oh, I'm thinking
Getting your
Calicos.
dragons mixed up.
Yes.
Which is understandable because there are a lot of dragons in the game, both playable and also minions.
There's a lot of ghosts
Mm-hmm.
in Hearthstone and in Warcraft in general.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for me, early on, I was a much bigger fan of Syndragosa. Like, normally, you just hopefully get, like, a token drop on turn 1. You freeze.
Yep.
You upgrade. Sometimes maybe you even freeze again. So, like, the concept of freezing the board state in order to buff it, I always thought was, like, an interesting approach. The problem is you do kind of just get to that point where you're constantly having to roll to, find a buff or to find that triple or whatever. Whereas with Jaraxxus, it's a lot more passive in the sense that, well, once you have some demons, you're basically just hitting your hero power every single turn. So I feel like if we're talking about overall value when it comes to the hero power, it definitely leans heavily in the direction of Lord Jaraxxus at that point. Because really, for Syndragosa, you're probably only going to be using it like the first, like, 4 or so turns. And then the necessity of it has, like, a drastic cutoff point from that point on. Now, I will say, like, when it comes to the Tavern upgrades, and, like, just the overall pace of the game, Syndragosa does tend to get to Tavern 5 a little bit quicker compared to Jaraxxus, but I've always been more accustomed to between these two going Jaraxxus, primarily because, one, I don't hate juggler builds, but big demons, I'm not gonna say I've been, like, super consistent, but once you get to the end game and once you get to, like, Tavern 5, maybe you get a triple, you get Imp Mama, I feel like then you're really able to just control the pace from that point forward. But, Jaraxxus just tends to, for me, just have a more, stable, later routes within the game. So Jaraxxus is usually the one that I would lean towards here.
I get that. It's just I don't like being handcuffed. That's really all it comes down to. I just don't like being handcuffed.
Well, then that would shy you away from quite a few other heroes. Or is it just the fact that you find more value in, like, Flurgle being able to get Murlocs from Selid or...
Yes, see, like, Flurgle is different than this because you can create Murlocs with Flurgle. And that is a little different.
Right.
to me at least. So like that's where it's a little different. I don't know if there's really. I'm just trying to think of. Yeah, I can't think of another one. Those are really the only two ones that are like that much like you have to play this character.
Yeah, I mean, the only other one there was Maleficent, which you had already mentioned prior.
Which was, but that is one that works with and without full mech builds.
Right.
And I mean, Rat King to some degree, but not really. Just because you can really have that's more of a, you need to do a menagerie build, which opens up all sorts of options for you. So, I don't know. I just can't get behind Lord Draxus.
I don't know, listeners will have to let us know what they think, because Sindragosa has just always just kind of been very middle in, and I think Draxus has seen better results over the longevity of Battlegrounds up to this point. Either way, like, you know, this is one of the few times where we're actually split.
It really is. We're usually not that split. It's just, like, I hate to say this, Sindragosa early on with a Murloc build gets rid of like some of that weakness of the, okay, we have to go like we only have like the one health,
right,
type of situations, and it kind of gets rid of that. So I don't know. Sindragosa to me is, it's not strong by any sense of the word, but it's definitely, I think, underrated to some degree, especially when compared to Lord Draxus. Come on now, you're killing me, Totem. You're killing me.
The potential differential is just too much for me.
And even if you're gonna get handcuffed,
yeah.
So if you don't find demons in the first 3 rounds, you just,
well, I'm just gonna lose.
Okay.
But that's true if you don't really find anything.
Well,
it's technically not any different from what it would be for any other hero.
Yeah, but other heroes have more beneficial things.
Not necessarily. I mean, whatever they're buying isn't always going to benefits from their hero power, so.
True. But that's why most of the ones at the top don't have stuff that you benefit from like that. Like Norzdomu, Dancing Daryl, Rafam, Deathwing, Yogg-Saron. You know, you're just like, that's the big difference to me. So,
to each your own, my dog's barking. So, you know, I think that's basically it for this week. It was kind of like a lighter week, really not a whole lot of news, so more Tavern reflections than anything this week. So with that being said, Ed, let's go ahead and, you know, let's wrap things up. So if you guys want to help us out, please do us a favor. Head on over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing, or if there's like any sort of improvements you would like to see us make, or any suggestions for segments. We are always open ears, and we would love to hear from you. And of course, we do have a number of different ways how you guys can get a hold of us, whether it is, you know, the podcast in itself or both of the hosts. So Ed, why don't you let our listeners know how they can do that?
All right. So you can reach us at through email at taverntalespodcast@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at taverntaleshs. We're going to plug 2 Twitches. Or no, you just put 2 Twitch. on the notes.
I don't even have those notes up, so I don't even know what's there.
It's so we do record live on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/TavernTalesHS. We are on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. And you can find me personally on Twitter at Ednar83 or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, you can find me currently edited in the show notes to try to fix that. You know, and it's not like you don't have write-in permissions, you dork. I fixed it.
I am Ron Burgundy. You put something in front of me, I'm going to read it.
Well, it worked. But anyways, you can follow me over on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. I'm also streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/TotallyDrunk. Where... I'm sure at some point we'll be streaming more Battlegrounds. Just my stream schedule has been all out of whack during the pandemic, as has my sleep schedule, and even at times my podcast schedule. So things are a lot of moving parts here. So I do want to thank you guys again for joining us tonight for another episode of Tavern Tales. This has been episode number 16. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar, and we will see you guys back in the tavern next week. Take care, and have a good night.
Peace out.